Hello and welcome to On the Agenda, the City of Reno semi-monthly podcast that breaks down what's happening at City Hall and what it means to you, all within the time it takes to drive to work or loop McCarran Boulevard. I'm Diego Sarasua, filling in for AJ, and filling in for City Manager Jackie Bryant is Assistant City Manager J.W. Hodge.
Hello. Hey, Diego.
Hello. On today's episode, we're taking a closer look at something that impacts everything at the City of Reno, and that is the fiscal year budget. But before we get into the main topic, JW is going to highlight some of the decisions Council made at the latest meeting.
Thank you. So this week's council meeting, we had a full agenda. I don't know if you know, we were there till about 8:30 last night. Council heard a presentation regarding potential code updates for data center uses in the City of Reno. They provided direction to staff after hearing a great deal of public comment, initiating a text amendment to Title 18 Annexation and Land Development Code to review and modify the requirements for data center uses. This follows a January 2025 ordinance that formally adopted data centers as a land use, requiring conditional use permits, or a CUP, and establishing initial development standards. To date, the city has reviewed 4 data center projects, each with different utility needs, but similar land use characteristics. With this council decision, city staff will work with regional partners to develop a consistent set of standards. Council also initiated a text amendment for indoor live entertainment within the entertainment core, so basically the downtown area, to provide a temporary exception to conditional use permits and regulations. Under this pilot program, businesses would no longer need a CUP, but would still be required to have a security plan in the cabaret license. The change responds to concerns from business owners about cost, time, and uncertainty tied to the permit process, while still addressing neighborhood concerns through monitoring and enforcement. The pilot will run through December of 2027, giving us at the city some time to evaluate the impacts and report the results back to council. Finally, the council heard 3 different hearings yesterday related to land use: the Trago Grid annexation hearing, the Ridge Park zoning map amendment, and the Clearacre Commons master plan and zoning map amendments, all which went through council yesterday.
Well, thank you for that info. If you'd like to learn more, view staff reports for these agenda items, or past highlights, visit reno.gov/news. Another big item this week was the financial update, which included how we're wrapping up this fiscal year and what's ahead to the next one. Joining us now is the city's Director of Finance, Vicki Van Buren, to help us break it all down. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Let's get started with the current fiscal year. You shared that the city is expecting to end FY26 with savings in the general fund. What does that mean, and where are those savings coming from?
In simple terms, it means that we're bringing in a little more than expected and spending a little less. That's based on revenues coming in stronger in some areas like C-Tax and business licenses, while salary and benefits and operating costs are coming in lower than expected. Just a reminder, the city's fiscal year runs from July through June 30. So when we're talking about a year, we're not talking about the calendar year, but that 12-month budget cycle. Right now, the city's projecting approximately $7.3 million in savings by the end of fiscal year 2026, and that's from salary and benefits and those costs coming in lower. And this gives us flexibility as we prepare for the next budget year.
So, Vicki, what I'm also hearing is that 2 things happened. A little bit, the revenue's coming in a little bit higher, which is good, but also on the flip side, through council's management, your management, our staff working together over the last year, we've really found a way to decrease our expenses at the same time, which helps to offset on both sides, making us come to this point where we actually have a budget that's balanced and moving forward in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely helps as we build out the budget for the next year. And when I talk about savings, it's comparing the budget to what we actually spend. So that's the savings piece that we're seeing.
And to put a little bit of a finer point on it, when we budgeted last year, we also budgeted more conservatively, knowing we were going into a tough year for revenues. So the savings you're recognizing from our departments and the work they've done based on council's direction have actually exceeded even those expectations to help us get to where we are today.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Now, looking ahead, Council also received an update for the proposed FY27 budget. What does it mean when we say that the city is proposing a balanced budget, Vicki?
A balanced budget means projected revenues and available resources are enough to cover projected expenses for the year. So for fiscal year 27, the city's proposing a general fund budget with about $335 million in resources and $335 million in expenses. To really close the gap that we initially had and to balance this budget, A mix of reduced spending, modest revenue adjustments, and a portion of one-time savings was used from fiscal year 26, and that's the savings we talked about previously. It's also worth noting that this is all based on projections, so we use the best data that we have. While we can directly control how we spend money, revenues depend a lot on the economy, which is hard to predict.
Another topic that often comes up is debt. The City of Reno's general fund carries a minimal debt compared to many organizations. Why is this important?
General fund is the city's primary operating fund, which supports essential services like police, fire, and parks. Keeping debt low in the general fund gives the city more flexibility to respond to changing priorities and economic conditions. It also helps ensure that taxpayer dollars can go towards services instead of making debt payments. If you're interested in the bigger picture, council will have a deeper conversation about debt and long-term financial planning at the May 6th council meeting.
Vicki, so speaking of debt a little bit, I would say over the last few years, council's done a tremendous job in focusing and paying down debt that we had from the past.
Yes, they have, and we've restructured debt over the last few years as well.
Which has also helped us find that middle ground of having the right amount of debt, because if you can't not have debt as a city, because that means you're not growing or building or doing the things that the city needs. But would you say comparatively amongst your peers and other people across the country that our debt's in a healthy place for a city our size?
Absolutely. We definitely have a healthy debt. As far as the city being able to manage it, as we just talked about, the general fund really has a small portion of the debt. Most of the debt is from dedicated revenue sources, other sources outside of that, so it doesn't take it away from the services that the city's providing.
Well, this is super good to know. We also heard a budget update related to the Redevelopment Agency, or RDA. How is the RDA different than the general fund, Vicki?
Biggest difference is how it's funded and what it's used for. The Redevelopment Agency is funded primarily through tax increment revenue, which is the growth in property tax value within specific redevelopment areas over time. As those areas grow and property values increase, that growth generates revenue that stays in those areas and gets reinvested back in them. We're seeing a lot of strong growth in those areas right now, and that reflects the continued development downtown and in those areas. Unlike the general fund, which pays for day-to-day city services, the RDA focuses on long-term investments like infrastructure, economic development, and revitalization.
Another positive takeaway is that the redevelopment debt also may soon be paid off. Why is this so significant?
The Redevelopment Agency could eliminate all remaining debt as early as the first quarter of fiscal year 27, depending on the repayment schedules, because we do have to notify them when we want to pay them off early. It's important that once debt is gone, future tax increment revenue can be directed toward new projects instead of debt, so that's really critical, and it's really a great thing. It's going to be paid off debt-free. And again, it all comes back to planning. We build these budgets based on projections, knowing things can change, but always aiming to stay flexible and responsible. And obviously, we can come back and amend budgets during the year as well. So we monitor all year long.
Thanks for helping us break this down. Financial updates can sound pretty complicated, but these conversations really show how budgeting decisions connect directly to the city, services, and long-term planning.
Absolutely. It's about maintaining financial stability and continuing to serve our community every day.
Thank you, Vicki. If you'd like to learn more about the city's budget process, upcoming council decisions, and financial updates, visit reno.gov. Before we sign off, Assistant City Manager JW has a quick preview of what's on the agenda for the May 6th council meeting.
Thanks, Diego, and thanks, Vicki. At our next meeting, council will potentially approve a contract for park path repairs at Dorothy McAlinden Park, funded through the Community Development Block Grant funds, which will improve access for North Valley's residents. They're also going to consider a grant to expand rolling recreation program at Yory Park in Ward 3. This is a free program that brings games, sports, and activities to our park to local youth and families, activating our parks across the city. And finally, council will discuss updates related to code enforcement services, which help to ensure properties across Reno remain safe and well maintained.
Perfect. Well, thank you, JW. To stay up to date on all things Reno, visit reno.gov/on the agenda. Here you'll find everything in one easy place: council meeting agendas, city news, and past episodes. Thanks for listening to On the Agenda, keeping you connected to the decisions shaping Reno. We'll see you on the next one.